Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Am I audible to all of you? Good afternoon, sir. So, did you like Durkheim? Yes, तो बोलना ही पड़ेगा क्योंकि पढ़ना है. You have no choice. You'll have to read it. Okay. You know, when I read Mild Durkheim, somehow I feel that I'm reading autobiography of some person. Basically, whatever he has written in the name of theory, elementary forms of religion, rules of sociological method, division of labor in society, la suicide. When I read these things, somehow I feel I'm reading his autobiography. Because in all his writings, the only thing that he is concerned about is the social order. And he is, throughout his writing, thankful to the French state, the nation, which has reintegrated all those people who had become so much individualist after the Enlightenment. Somehow the way he's thankful to French state is very much reflected through his writing. That is why he's always talking about certain social facts which could coalesce individuals around something that which they collectively consider as sacred. Okay. That is why he said old gods may be dead, new gods not yet born, but they will be born. Sacred is something that can never be weakened. It will always be there as long as we have societies. Morality is something that you would always have in one or the other form. Okay, maybe in the form of music concert, or maybe in the form of nationalism, patriotism. Of course, Durkheim would have said these things. Why? Because he was very fortunate. He belonged to a very prosperous family and he accomplished whatever he wanted to. He cracked UPSC. He got into École Normale Supérieure, his dream, in second attempt. Okay. So obviously he would be thankful to the state. But when I read this person, somehow I feel that Durkheim has lied blatantly. Somehow I feel cheated. Okay. I feel that I wasted my life reading Durkheim. This man was born in the year 1818, the city of Trier, Germany. The city of Trier, Germany. And since you guys know this very well, that Durkheim, the birth year of Durkheim was 1858. He died in the year 1917. And if you look into the timeline of Karl Marx, that was somewhere in between that only. So basically, Marx had already died when Durkheim wrote most of the philosophical literature or sociological text, starting with 1892, being division of labor, then 5, rules of sociological method, 7, suicide, 1912, elementary forms of religious life. So Durkheim basically had started writing when Marx had already died. This man was never ever interested in studies. He did not like studies. Okay. Unlike Durkheim was very intelligent. He cracked UPSC. And this person never had any interest in studies. And he, just like Durkheim, was also belonging to Jew family. Jews, as I told you, Jews have been very instrumental in shaping the discourse of history. He is one of them. One day his father sent him to university. At the age of 16, he was studying in a school. And in those days, people had these kind of things like optionals, okay, in school time only, whether you want to take linguistic course, philosophy course, something like that, okay. So Marx never liked philosophy, of course, okay, because he was never so studious. So he took language, okay. But his father realized that, you know, by the way, his father had four children, and Karl Marx was one of them. And father realized that this man is someone who, of course, is not studious, but then he is also a burden to our family, because the kind of nuisance that he creates every time he would be seen fighting with his brother or sisters, okay. And his father used to think that this man is a burden to my family, and that is why his father would always send him to one or the other school or university, just to make sure that he's staying away from him, okay. So one day Karl Marx was sent to University of Bonn University in Germany, okay. In Bonn University, again, since he had no interest in studies, during that time only he had already fallen in love with one girl, okay, Westphalen. And he was so much in love with that girl, and the problem was that this girl had a very different family background. She belonged to a very aristocratic family, and Karl Marx, unlike Julie Westphalen, was not belonging to a lot of or what I would call as an affluent family, okay. So during the course of studies he fell in love with this girl, and then he proposed her. She said no, because she thought that Karl Marx does not belong to a proper family, he does not have enough education, all those things, okay. But one thing which impressed that girl was the thoughts that Karl Marx had about the world, okay. The things that he used to talk about the world. He was very impressed, and one day for Karl Marx decided that I would try to impress this girl's father first. So he went to meet that girl's father. And the girl's father was very much a follower of Saint Simon, someone who has talked about the idea of socialism, which was also a very philosophical idea in those days, okay. And his father just went through his writings, and he got really impressed with Karl Marx ideas, okay. And finally both of them got married and stayed happily. His father asked him to pursue higher education. And as I told you that Karl Marx was never interested in studies, whenever he studied, it was only because of compulsion. Okay. It was never coming out of his own interest or passion. The last university that Karl Marx joined was University of Berlin. And University of Berlin in those days was just like we in Hindi we call it as Gad. Gad कहते हैं जैसे हिंदी में. Okay. Similarly, in those times, University of Berlin was, source of philosophy. To be precise, rather source of philosophers. George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, he was one of the most popular philosopher, okay, who was produced by this university. He was also head of philosophy in that department of philosophy in University of Berlin. One day, Marx was sitting with two or three people, okay, in that University of Berlin only. He had no idea about Hegel, okay. So he was talking to two, three people like Bruno Boyer and Ludwig Feuerbach. Those people I'll teach you also, okay. Now these people never used to study. So because Karl Marx had this interest that we should talk more about practical things, philosophy is so boring. It is so uninteresting thing. By the way, has any one of you have ever studied philosophy? Ever studied philosophy in BA or MA? Of course, BTech वाले तो नहीं पढ़ सकते हैं. In class 12. Okay. So, so this man, along with two more individuals, Feuerbach and Bruno Bayer. These three had become so close friends because none of them were interested in studies. Okay. And one day, Karl Marx was found heavily drunk in the classroom along with these people. Okay. Not Feuerbach. Feuerbach was already dead by then, but with Bruno Bayer. Okay. He was dancing in the classroom, having alcohol in the classroom. Okay. He was such a nuisance everywhere, not just in the family, but also in the university. And finally, what happened? The vice chancellor of university expelled him along with Bruno Bayer. Okay. This was a brief background about Karl Marx. Remember, Marx was also a Jew just like Durkheim. Okay. And Marx, unlike Durkheim, was not interested in studies. Remember these things. Okay. He was always interested in real concrete issues. And what was being taught in the name of studies in those days? It was philosophy. And philosophy, when you read, somehow you feel, what are we reading? What are we going to get? Okay. What are we going to get if we read meaning, existence, soul, spirit? What are we going to get after reading this? And that is why Karl Marx never had developed any kind of interest in these things. Okay. Marx always used to think, why don't we talk about the people, the real people, in the sense, people who are poor? How can we explain the sufferings of poor? Through philosophy. Philosophy, if you take a lesson of philosophy, Immanuel Kant, okay, Rene Descartes, Francis Bacon, you would not realize how these things, how these people are going to help us in alleviating the real problems like poverty in our society. Okay. They do not tell us about inequalities in society, which are the real concerns of the people. They would not tell you how would you become prosperous in the sense, or what are the things which are obstructing in the way of your prosperity. The problem is, when Karl Marx joined University of Berlin, that is in Germany, At that point of time, the Berlin University was highly influenced by the ideas and philosophy of one man, that was Hegel. Hegel. Okay. Hegel's philosophy was taught in the university. And when Marx joined University of Berlin, the Berlin University had a club in the sense doctors club, they call it. Doctors club. Doctors club means club of PhD people. It is one club where PhD people can have discussions, just like canteen. Okay, it was a club. They used to call it club. Okay, it was not a building. Okay, it was just discussion sessions they used to have. Okay, and Karl Marx had also joined this club. Okay, Karl Marx had also joined this club, and this club was divided into two groups. One who were the supporter of Hegel, pro-Hegelians. Second group of people were those who were young Hegelians. Which means anti-Hegelian. Young Hegelians. What do we understand by young Hegelians? Anybody who is young and anybody who is not supportive of the idea of Hegel would find himself in this group, young Hegelian. And Karl Marx found himself in this group because he was anyhow very much against the study of philosophy. Okay. And more so, he was highly against the writings of Hegel. And I'll tell you why. In young Hegelians, you would talk about Ludwig Feuerbach, plus Karl Marx. Okay. And there were many other people also, but to us, these two are important. Okay. So this was the scenario of University of Berlin. One fine day, Karl Marx decided to read Hegel. This is a story which predates Karl Marx joining this club. Okay. I'm telling you why Karl Marx joined this club, Young Hegelians, why he was against Hegel. One day, Karl Marx was trying to read Hegel. Hegel is one of the most incomprehensible scholars in the history of philosophy. In the sense, he has written very fat books like Phenomenology of Spirit, Phenomenology of Mind, Philosophy of History, but you would not be able to understand what exactly he wants to tell us. Bertrand Russell calls him one of the most incomprehensible scholar in the history of philosophy. Okay. And Marx was really trying to figure out, why are we reading him? What are we going to get? And then one fine day, Marx read the writings of Feuerbach. One fine day, Marx read the writings of Feuerbach also. Okay, now you will find the reason why Hegel should be read. Okay. Remember, Karl Marx joined as young Hegelian. And being a young Hegelian, he was against the writings of Hegel. And therefore, if you want to understand Karl Marx, it is imperative to read Hegel first. Okay. Let us try to understand what is the idea of Hegel. Why should we read him? What has he actually talked about? Hegel. Okay. Remember Hegel, then Feuerbach, and then Karl Marx. This is how we are going to study. Hegel, Feuerbach, and then Karl Marx. Okay. So far, clear everything? Although I have not taught you anything so far, but yes, okay. One fine day, one student of Hegel asked Hegel, Sir, what is history? Okay. What is history? Please tell me, what do we understand by history? How can we philosophize history? Hegel said, history is nothing but evolution of ideas. Remember this. Okay. History is nothing but evolution of ideas. Just assume that all you people are going to be part of history after 100 years or 200 years. Okay. Whatever you are going to do is predestined. Why? Because the author of the history of the world is the God. Okay. Consider it like this. This is what Hegel is. God has already decided the discourse of history. We individuals are simply agents of something that is already decided. We are going to act upon those things which have already been decided. Okay. Therefore, individuals do not play any role in history. Individuals do not play any role in history. Just think it like this. One fine day you were sleeping and you saw one dream. In the dream, you saw Lord Ram. Okay. Lord Ram told you, I'm going to meet you tomorrow. Wake up on time. Okay. Otherwise, you will miss the very important detail that I'm going to tell you. Okay. Can you please check your video or net? Video or net? I mean, so far it's been running fine, I guess. Lagging. Fine. Fine. Okay, fine, fine, fine. Okay, just imagine. One fine night, you saw Lord Ram in your dream. And next day, you went to meet him. Okay, you went to meet him. He told you that Ayodhya, the temple, Ram Mandir should be built here. Okay. Okay. Now, next day you would try to influence other people. It should be built here. Okay. Why? No, because Lord Ram has told me. Okay. And people would say, really? Lord Ram has told you? Yes. Okay, okay, let's start building the temple. Now, if I'm giving you this little brief story about this Lord Ram descending on someone's dream and telling him about the establishment of Ram Mandir where it should be built, and next day he is convincing every people that Ayodhya's Ram Mandir should be built here itself. Okay. And people are simply assembling and trying to make it possible. So, would you be able To say that we made the temple, no, it was already destined to be built there itself. You were simply agent. You were simply agents who were involved in making the temple. Okay, got it? Now the question is, how come God, how come God is unfolding the history? How come God is unfolding world historical figures? Okay, now I'm going to tell you something which is very important, because one day when the student of Hegel asked him what is history, Hegel simply told him history is evolution of ideas. And the next line that Hegel told that student was that history evolves all by its own. All by its own. It is the divine spirit. It is the divine spirit which is unfolding the history. It is a divine spirit which is unfolding the history. Okay. Student asked him, Hegel sir, can you please give me example? Hegel said, of course. Hegel says, there was a point of time when the world was ruled by despotic empires. Okay, despotic empires. It was a despotic world. Student asked him, what do you mean by despotic world? Hegel said, despotic world means where freedom is not given to any person. All the freedom is centralized in the ruler. Nobody else shall be given the freedom. Only ruler would enjoy all the freedom that he would have. He has all the power, he has all the authority to exercise his will even against the resistance of others. Okay, despotic world. Then student asked him, can you give me example of this despotic world? Hegel said, of course, the ancient China, Babylon, Egypt, these were despotic world. Then student asked him, are you trying to portray Asia as despotic? Hegel said, I am just trying to tell you examples of despotic regimes. Okay, these despotic regimes were present even in Europe. Okay, but these are the classical ones. Student said, okay. Now, what was the central feature of this despotic world? The central feature of this despotic world is that freedom is absent. Remember this, freedom is absent and freedom is enjoyed by only the rulers. Enjoyed by rulers only. Okay, now next. Student asked him, okay, so this is according to you a prototype, a model that we had once. What happened after that, Mr. Hegel? Hegel said, after this, came the Greco-Roman empires. Greco-Roman. Okay, Greco-Roman empires. Greco-Roman Empire. Okay. From despotic world, we entered into Greco-Roman Empire. Now, what is so special about Greco-Roman Empire? If you look into the writings of ancient Greeks and Romans, they are the first ones to talk about logic and individual. That means they are the first ones to talk about individual freedom. So the freedom that was absent here. Now, people had started talking about individual freedoms as well. Individual freedom. Do you realize one thing? When you read Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, why these people are so popular? Because they're talking about logic, observation, dialectics, conversation, and knowledge observed or gained through these processes. And that is why knowledge is not external to individuals. They are trying to say that we can know about the world through conversations and through our own logic and observation. We do not have to rely on something that is, you know, all divine, or we should be waiting for some that divine force to descend on earth and to tell us what is right or what is wrong. Okay, so here the freedom was absent. Freedom of individuals. Here the individual freedom had become a normal discourse. Okay, if you remember Renaissance, what was Renaissance? Renaissance was nothing but restoration of all the ancient Greek and Roman empires literature. Okay, and that is why they also started talking about individual freedom. Okay, otherwise individual freedom was one thing that was localized to Greco-Roman Empire. Okay, then student asked him what happened after this. Hegel said, after this came monarchy. Which monarchy? Constitutional monarchy. Remember this. Constitutional monarchy. And do you remember how constitutional monarchy came? After French Revolution. Remember or not? Right after French Revolution, we had constitutional monarchy. Before French Revolution, we had absolute monarchy. Lot of difference between both of them. Okay, when you have absolute monarchy, that means monarch enjoys all the freedom, or at max the nobles. The third state would have no freedom. Okay. So, the last stage, and this is the stage when Hegel was alive, and Hegel was writing in response to French Revolution only. This was the context, French Revolution, that Hegel was describing, although he was a German. But why was he interested in French Revolution is something that I am going to tell you also. Constitutional monarchy is one monarchy which actually established a well-established balance between individual freedom and the great monarch. In the sense, here we were talking only about the freedom of monarchy. Here we were talking about freedom of individuals. But here we are going to have a proper balance between monarch and individuals. And when you have proper balance between monarch and individual freedom, it will automatically reconcile man in the state, or the differences between man and the state. All these differences will get reconciled here at this world historical event called as French Revolution. Okay, I'll tell you about these words also, world historical, okay. Now, what can you explain? Hegel is asking his student, I have told you this is history. Now Hegel is asking his student, now you tell me what is history. Okay, then That student told him that what I can figure out of what you have described is that I feel history is all about ever increasing freedom, ever increasing rationality. This is what history has been all about. You had no freedom, only monarchs or the ancient empires. Then Greco-Roman came, individual freedom they talked about. Okay, and then came the constitutional monarch, a proper balance between a state and the idea of liberty. Okay. So therefore, according to Hegel, history is nothing but evolution of ideas. Right or not? Which ideas? Which ideas? Despotism, absolute monarchs, sorry, despotism, and then democracy. This is despotism. This is democracy. Because we are talking about individual freedom. And democracy owes a lot to the writings of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. Okay. From despotism, we reach to democracy, and from democracy, we have now entered into constitutional monarchy. Do you know Hegel despised democracy? He never liked democracy. Okay. He never liked democracy. History is nothing but evolution of ideas. And we are seeing clearly how ideas are evolving from despotism. We are going into democracy to constitutional monarchy. Clear? Now, the student asked Hegel the next question. How did we evolve like this? Okay. Hegel said it was predestined. It is the world spirit. Remember this word. It is the world spirit. It is the world spirit which manifests itself through different heroes that we celebrate in history and events. Write down this line. It is the world spirit which manifests itself through different heroes and events. Now, what is the meaning of this line? Hegel is telling his student, all that you have seen throughout history was nothing but the manifestation of God. You know, today we do not have, I don't know how many of you would agree with this or not. Do you get to listen about people like Gandhi, Hitler, Mussolini, Alexander, Napoleon Bonaparte these days? All these are gone. You don't get to. So basically, you are living in a very unfortunate times. This is what Hegel is trying to tell us. That, you know, imagine you are born in an era, the era which has produced Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay. And you are seeing Napoleon all through your eyes. Okay. And you are getting fascinated by this person's action. Because you know this person is not just a person, this is manifestation of divine who has come here as an agent to aid the process of history. Okay, just think like this. Suppose You know why people used to worship Gandhi? Because they knew that he has come from heaven to liberate these people and to give him freedom and to aid in the process of the historical evolution of Indian society. Just think like this. Okay, if you were born in the era of these people, then you would have realized what kind of power these people possessed. And these powers, what is the source of this power? The source of this power was nothing but divine. And Gandhi, Nehru, Alexander, Napoleon, Ashoka, Akbar, Shah Jahan, these people were nothing but the individuals chosen by the God to help you guys in the evolution or in the processes of history, or to help the world to evolve itself to another stage. If these people were not born by the God, the histories would not have evolved. Okay, and histories would have remained static. So we should be thankful to God. This is what Hegel is telling his student. Okay, okay. Then Hegel was asked one more question by his student. Student asked him, who is that person? Right now, tell me, Mr. Hegel, who is that person who is going to unfold the next chapter of history in the contemporary era? Who is that person who is going to be remembered forever? Who is that person who is manifestation of that spirit? Hegel told him, that person I can see before me, and that person is Napoleon. Napoleon. Why Napoleon? Napoleon. The world history, the history of world converges here. The history has produced Napoleon. Okay. And it is only after Napoleon the history opens up again. And therefore, Napoleon, in the eyes of Hegel, is a world historical figure. And Hegel is telling the students, do not miss this opportunity. You are living in an era which is characterized by one world historical figure who will be remembered forever in the times to come. Okay. Hegel told his student, it is in the Napoleon that the past has summed up. And it is in the Napoleon that future is loaded. In the sense, Napoleon is that person. I hope you guys have read briefly about Napoleon. If not, why Napoleon is celebrated by Hegel like this, I'll also tell you. You know, after French Revolution, the world was not so peaceful just like we generally read. Okay. It was all reign of terror. If you remember, I have told you this thing also, that after French Revolution, we had reign of terror. People were executed, kings were executed like anything. Order was absent. Someone had to be there to restore the order. Who is that person going to be? And it was Napoleon. And Napoleon was not an accidental figure in history. It was all predestined. Then that this disorder will come and one person will descend again as a manifestation of that spirit to help the humanity to progress further in the course of history. Okay, and that was Napoleon. Napoleon took the charge. Napoleon established the order. He established the order. Although in the name of order, he also trampled upon equality of men or liberty or freedom of speech of many people, but somehow he was seen as a legend. He was seen as a legend. And then came Napoleonic Wars. Napoleonic Wars. When Napoleon took over the regime, you know, in the year 1806, there was a battle, Battle of Jena. Battle of Jena. Battle of Jena was fought between Napoleon and Prussian Emperor. Okay, German. And German was annexed by Napoleon. Germany was annexed. The Prussian Emperor was annexed by Napoleon. Okay, at least for the next 6 or 8 years. Okay. And Hegel was watching all this. Hegel was watching all this. The rise of Hitler after the Reign of Terror and the annexation of Prussian Empire by Napoleon. Okay. And when Hegel was witness to rise of Napoleon, Napoleon passed by Hegel like this, and Hegel was stunned because he knew that what is exactly has he gotten witness to right now. Someone who would be remembered forever in the pages of history and would be talked about even in 2020 by someone who is teaching sociology to those people who are aspiring for UPSC. Okay, this was the charisma, and he told people that you guys do not have any idea which era you are living in. And one more thing. Hegel believed that whatever he has written in philosophy of history, all that thing which I explained to you from despotism, democracy to constitutional monarchy, that was philosophy of history. Okay. He believed that we are situated right now exact at the point where history takes a leap. This is the point. Rise of Napoleon, annexation of Napoleon. This is the point history is going to take a leap forward. And I am here. We are fortunate. And therefore, he calls Napoleon as the world soul. World soul. पूरे world का soul है, because the history is going to get transformed from here. Not just Napoleon, he was equally fascinated by Alexander. Okay. History always produce such heroes. Heroes. There are different kind of people in history. Some are heroes who will be remembered and who are the agents of change. Some are just victims. Okay. But heroes are those people who are going to process the history. Okay. So this was the idea of Hegel. So therefore, now I would be talking about one concept here from here on, since I have given you brief background also. Now let me talk about idealism. Idealism. If you read Hegel, the central idea of his work is that world evolves with the evolution of ideas. This is what I told you. It is the evolution of ideas which are the driving force of history. Evolution of ideas as driving force of history. Okay. Now, these ideas are not moving in a linear fashion. Remember this. Every idea collides with next idea. And with the collision between these two ideas, the the best of these two ideas would be summed up in the next stage. Basically, if you remember, let me first write it down. The evolution of ideas happen in a dialectical fashion. The evolution of ideas happen in a dialectical fashion. Okay, now what is dialectical fashion? If you remember, I told you about the three stages: despotism, democracy, and constitutional monarchy. The idea of constitutional monarchy, if you look into, was all about a well-established balance between state and freedom, which means constitutional monarchy had elements of both despotism and democracy. Okay, statehood and freedom. It clearly tells us that when society evolves, when history evolves, the evolutionary stages would always have some or the other thing from the past, which can be considered as something that can be taken in future. Okay, some of the best elements of past would always be taken forward in future. Okay, now dialectics is another keyword which I just talked about. What is dialectics? Dialectics is nothing but conflict or contradiction between ideas. Conflict or contradiction between ideas. Okay. Conflict or contradiction between ideas. There was a conflict between despotism, democracy, which led to the rise of constitutional monarchy. Okay. Think it like this only. This would help you to understand dialectics. Conflict between ideas resulting into something that has elements of both the elements of the past. Okay, the best elements of past. Conflict, contradiction between ideas leading to evolution of the world history. Okay. Now, dialectical idealism. I have just talked about idealism. Then I talked about dialectics. Now I am telling you dialectical idealism. चीज वही है. Okay. It's same phenomena. Dialectical idealism simply means evolution of society through dialectics between ideas. Through dialectics between ideas. Think it like this. Before British Empire came to rule India, India was ruled by Mughal emperors. Okay. India was ruled by Mughal emperors. Before Mughal emperors, India was ruled by, who was the last Hindu emperor of India? Last Hindu emperor. Can someone tell me? Ancient India देखते हैं कितनों ने पढ़ी. Last Hindu emperor. I am saying Hindu emperor. नहीं. Not Maurya. अरे उस लड़के का नाम भी है यहाँ पर. हर्षा. हर्षा. The last emperor of North India. Or Hindu emperor basically. Not just North India. Hindu emperor. Harsha. Okay. Harshvardhan. Bana Bhatta was written to describe the achievements of Harsh. Bana Bhatta. Okay. Harshcharit. Yes, written by Bana Bhatta. Harshcharit. So dialectical idealism was evolution of society through dialectics of ideas. But when I talk about these people, ancient Hindu empire, Mughal empire, then British India, and then modern India, you would see element of all these people, all these empires in the modern India. You have emblem, national emblem, Ashoka, from the ancient India, Ashokan empire. Okay. You have the constitution, which you have inherited. Basically, constitution is a modern document. Modern document talking about freedom of speech, expression, right, religion, secularism, all those things, which are nothing but Western ideas. Western ideas. Okay. The idea of secularism can also be traced to the writings of Akbar. Kul hi kul. Okay, this is what secularism is. Kul hi kul, universal peace. Okay. So basically, all these ideas had culminated into the establishment of what we call as modern India today. So history can never be seen as or in isolation to what we have today. What we have today is very much product of historical changes. All those ideas came in contact or in conflict with each other, resulting into what could be the better possible alternative solution. And that we had was nothing but, in the name of independence of India, we got modern India having its own constitution. Okay. So this was all about Hegel. Okay. In simple words, to Hegel, whatever we see today in form of economy or in form of state, in form of polity, in form of culture, in form of art, in form of paintings, is nothing but manifestation of the spirit. Spirit has decided what is good for this era, what kind of art should be there, what kind of painting should be there, what kind of economy should be there, what kind of culture should be there, what kind of polity administration should be there. It is nothing but all these epochs are manifestation of that spirit. Okay. Spirit, remember, when Hegel talks about spirit, some people equate spirit with mind. Some people equate spirit with ideas. Some people equate spirit with God. Okay, but at the end of the day, whatever Hegel said was nothing but expression of what he imagined what God would write in the pages of history. Okay, and he believed that he and Napoleon are sharing the similar page in the text of history, and that is why he was highly elated on seeing Napoleon, the world historical figure, coming in before me. I can see him. So it was a coincidence to him that how come both of us are sharing the similar space. I am talking on behalf of God, writing on behalf of God, and I can see world historical figure before me annexing Germany. Okay, so this was very coincidental moment for him. But that is why he has gone so mad. Okay. Now comes Ludwig Feuerbach. Ludwig Feuerbach. फ्यूरबैक बोल रहा है, ये सब क्या कर रहे हो तुम? क्या बोल रहे हो? What nonsense are you teaching students? And how this nonsense is going to make sense, please tell me. Feuerbach criticized Hegel like anything. Feuerbach says, when you talk about God, God, spirit, 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 world spirit having its manifestation in form of heroes, which are world historical figures who have shaped the world historical events. When you say anything like that, do you have even idea what are you saying? Feuerbach says, God is nothing, our own creation. God is our own creation. You know, imagine like this. Imagine like this. Suppose you have made an idol of God. Okay, you have made an idol of God. You have statue of God. Okay. Now what will you do? You yourself have made that idol. Okay. And after making that idol, you are saying, God, please help me clear this exam. Please, 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 please help me clear this. Make me clear this exam. आप जो बोलोगे मैं कर दूंगा. ठीक है? जो बोलोगे. अभी आप ही ने बनाया है वो. Just 2 minutes back, you just constructed this idol, and then you have started praying him, and then saying, please, please, please help me. वो अंदर से स्टैचू जो है वो गाली दे रहा है तुमको कि पागल हो गए तुम, अभी तुमने ही बनाया मेरे को. Anyhow, the fact is, Feuerbach says, when we talk about God, somehow God is nothing but projection of our inner desires or wishes that we want to have or that we lack. Like, for example, if you say to God, God, please help me, or God, please get me Mercedes, BMW. Okay. What does it show? You lack, you do not have Mercedes or BMW, or you do not have IAS position. So when you say, God, please help me get into IAS, God, please help me get Mercedes, you are doing nothing basically. God is basically nothing but projection of the things that you desire but you do not possess. Are you getting my point? What is Feuerbach trying to say? God is simply projection of the things that we desire but we do not possess. Simply. Okay. Now see what Feuerbach says after this. God is projection of our desires and needs. That we do not possess. Okay, now you have made this idol. Imagine this is one idol of God. Okay, and you are standing here praying. Okay, क्या बन गया ये? यार देखो पेंटिंग तो इतनी अच्छी आती नहीं मेरे को. ये फोल्ड कर रहे हो अपने हैंड तुम और प्रे कर रहे हो. Okay, now this is you praying before God. You have some candles in your hand. Okay. Feuerbach saying this God is projection of our desires and needs that we do not possess. Now what will you do? You will say to God, God, you are omnipotent, you are omniscient, You are almighty. You are projection of humanity. You are the ideal person that one should aspire to be like. You are merciful. You are everything that one could think of. You have everything that one could possess. Please give some of those things to us. When you are saying like this before God, Feuerbach is getting very angry. Feuerbach is saying that this man created God, and after creating God, he has elevated God to such a level that you are almighty, omniscient, omnipotent. Please help me. I'm miserable. When the creator creates something and elevates that creation to a level that is incomprehensible, it clearly shows that the creation has become external to the creator. And that's how the creation takes or assumes a reality of its own type. Simply meaning, when you are every time praising God, God, and you are believing that God exists, God can do everything for me, what is happening? Your own creation has assumed a reality external to the creator. Creation means God has been created by us, so that is why it is the creation. Creation has assumed reality external to the creator, and since creation has become external to the creator would now always feel alienated. The creator would now always feel alienated. Okay, this is what Feuerbach is saying. So therefore, in conclusion, what we can talk about Feuerbach, we can only say one thing. It is not the religion which creates humanity, or it is not the God which creates human. Rather, it is the man himself which creates God, elevates God to such a level that the creation himself becomes external to the creator. And this is what he calls as alienation. Alienation. Okay. One fine day, Sigmund Freud, who was very impressed by the writings of Ludwig Feuerbach, Sigmund Freud believed, here comes my world historical figure. Okay, imagine that Freud has read Hegel and then he is reading Feuerbach. So Freud would consider Feuerbach as one of that person with the help of whom I can prove my theories right. Okay, because he's speaking just like me. He is talking about desires, needs that human possess and do not have, or humans do not possess basically. They are lacking, and that is why they have created an image of God. So now, after Feuerbach comes Sigmund Freud. Okay, he is highly impressed by the writings of Ludwig Feuerbach. Okay, but before that, write one more line. In Ludwig Feuerbach, write one more line. Feuerbach was against the conception of idealism. Feuerbach was against the conception of idealism, or the concept of idealism. And and instead of supporting Hegel's thesis on philosophy of history, and instead of supporting Hegel's thesis on philosophy of history, Hegel's thesis on philosophy of history, comma, he critiqued Hegel. He critiqued Hegel because he believed that nothing like world spirit exists. Nothing like world spirit exists. Or nothing like so-called, history being a manifestation of ideas, the divine ideas. Nothing like this exists. Okay. And God is nothing but a creation of humanity only. And God is a creation of humanity. And God is nothing but creation of humanity. Okay. This was all about Feuerbach. Therefore, it is the material condition or the physical being. Therefore, it is the material condition or the physical being, that is human, which is responsible for the generation of ideas or the production of ideas. Okay, it is the physical being which is responsible for the production of ideas. Ideas per se do not exist. Idea like world, spirit, consciousness, dialectics, all those dialectics of ideas all happening all by itself. God has written these pages of history and we are simply participant in that. If not Napoleon, someone else would have born it. He was destined to be a part of the pages of the French Revolution's history. Okay, so Feuerbach saying that whatever Hegel has said is nonsense. That does not happen. Okay, no God is authoring the pages of history. It is only we, the people, who are making history. Okay, we make our own history, and then when we make history, somehow history also becomes external to us. Conditions get created that are no longer in your hands. Okay, and when you feel that these conditions are no longer in your hands, you start feeling that there must be someone who would come to the rescue of you people to help you, get over this crisis period in history. And that's how the belief in God comes into existence. God per se does not exist. Okay. Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud is a student of Ludwig Feuerbach. Okay. What is he going to talk about? He is going to talk about religion only. Why? Religion was the favorite topic of the philosophers of those times. Okay. Because God अभी अभी मरे थे एकदम ताजा ताजा एनलाइटनमेंट फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन के बाद एकदम फ्रेश मरे थे अभी, इसलिए सब लोग इन्हीं के ऊपर बात करते थे. ओके. रिलीजन. He's saying religion is collective neurosis. Collective neurosis. Neurosis. Collective neurosis. Okay. This is something that I've already explained to all of you. In case you do not remember, I'll briefly tell you what is the idea of Freud on religion. Just imagine that all of you were monkeys. Okay. This is how we have evolved from primate horde, to the mankind that we are. Okay. When you were monkey, imagine One day, your mother monkey and you were 8 or 9 monkeys. All of you started feeling sexual attraction towards the monkey mother. Okay. And what happened? You, because you wanted to have her. Okay. You wanted to have her, so you killed the father monkey. Okay. Now, this is a story written by Freud. Okay. What has happened exactly? How have we evolved? This is what he's trying to explain. Okay. We killed our father monkey because we wanted to have sexual relation with mother monkey. Okay. After killing our father monkey, we started feeling guilty. We started feeling guilty. Now that guilt, that humanity confronted for the first time, the humanity guilt, the guilt of humanity, not just guilt of an individual. The guilt of that humanity has passed over to this generation and will pass on from next generation to generation. Okay. Since we are guilty of killing our grand millions of grandfather, grandest of the father. So that is why when we are holding hands and praying someone, unconsciously we are actually wanting to have that same father that we have killed once upon a time. We are wanting to have that same father come to our rescue in the difficult times. When you are crying, you would always want to seek help from your father. And this God is nothing but that same father which you had once killed only because you guys wanted to have your sexual relationship with the mother. So now when you go to temple, consciously, when you go out, someone would ask you, क्या मांगा मंदिर में? तुम बोलोगे, लबासना, IES. Okay, Sigmund Freud would say this is only in the conscious mind, the unconscious. The unconscious is something which is hidden. The unconscious is the guilt that you had. Okay, and you do not realize it. This is why, because it is unconscious, and that is why you would never realize it. Okay, and when someone would tell you, you would be very surprised. ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है? But this is what Sigmund Freud is saying. Okay, so this is, and now what is the central theme of Sigmund Freud's idea on religion? Freud is trying to tell us that basically religion, when he says, is collective neurosis, in the sense neurosis over that feeling that we have killed our grandest of the father. So we are feeling, imagine thousands of people worshipping, okay, and desperately trying to touch the idol of that god. It is nothing but neurosis, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, that all of us are feeling. No, 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 I want to, cleanse myself of that guilt that I had unconsciously. Consciously, you may be having some wish that you have come for. Okay. Collective neurosis. Now, but what is the central idea of Freud? Idea of Freud is that religion or the idea of God does not exist. This is the central idea of religion. He says religion is nothing but wish fulfillment. You have this wish. काश मैं अपने गिल्ट को साफ कर लूं, उस विश को फुलफिल करने के लिए अपने गॉड बना दिया है. ओके, विश फुलफिलमेंट, नथिंग एल्स. Okay, you wish someone should be there. That is why God, you have started believing in God. What have we learned so far? So far, we have learned one major thing. Okay, one very major thing that we have learned so far. To summarize everything, we have learned Hegel on history of the evolution, okay, which is nothing but evolution of ideas. What is the source of ideas? World spirit. What is world spirit? Simply consider it as manifestation of God. It is the God who has authored the pages of history. We are simply participant. Okay. It is not in the hand of an individual to demolish monarchy or to establish democracy. All these things are pre-written. Okay. After Hegel, we read Feuerbach. And remember, Feuerbach was, as I told you, in the University of Berlin, in the Doctors Club, club was divided into Hegelians and young Hegelians. Feuerbach was a young Hegelian, so obviously he would criticize Hegel. Young Hegelian, being young Hegelian, he clearly critiqued the idea of history being the evolution of ideas. Okay, and he said religion per se does not exist. So to say that it is the God which is the central idea and everything else that we see before us, economy, polity, is nothing but the manifestation of the wishes of that God only, would be nonsense. Okay, religion or God does not exist per se. Okay, it is the physical being, the man, which has created the God and elevated the God to such a level that now the man himself feels alienated to his own creation, and that is why he is also regarded as materialist. Remember this word, materialist. Why materialist? Because he says God has been created by us, the physical being. So material is the real reality. Ideas are not the real reality. Understanding? Ideas do not exist. Ideas are created by the real material conditions of which human being is a part. So God is created by man, and therefore he is regarded as materialist philosopher. Okay, and Hegel, on the other hand, is regarded as idealist. Idealist, because I'll also I'll also draw one more chart after this. Okay, then the things will get more clear to you. And after Feuerbach comes Freud. Okay, Freud simply agrees with him. Simply agrees with him. Okay. Now this is a background to Karl Marx. Okay, and Marx has read all these people. Hegel, Feuerbach, Freud, everything he has read. Okay. Now, make one heading: dialectical idealism. Separate heading. Whatever I have told you so far was just a brief overview of all the things. Okay. Now the heading should be dialectical idealism. And draw this diagram. Okay. Now, what are the ideas and what is the material condition? Material condition, simply understand, implies economy. Just think it like that. Economy. Okay. Economy or polity. Think it like this. This is the material condition of any society. What is the kind of economy that they have? What is the kind of political structure that society has? Like Babylon society, okay, or Egyptian society, or ancient Indian society, or slave society. Whatever kind of economies they have, whatever kind of administration they have, is not their making, is the making of rather the divine. Okay, they are simply participating according to the wishes of divine. And what is the ideas? Ideas simply reflect world spirit. World spirit. Okay, God has decided what kind of economy and polity should be there in that society. God has decided. Okay, ideas resulting into economy mainly. Okay, now let me talk briefly about this world spirit or ideas. When you talk about world spirit, it includes it includes law. Okay, it includes family, it includes religion. Okay, everything basically other than economy or polity. Law, family, religion, the central ideas. And what is the kind of law in that society is nothing but manifestation of the spirit only. Family, manifestation of spirit only. Religion, manifestation of spirit only. Spirit is supreme. Okay. What is the kind of religion people are going to have, that is also decided by the divine. Okay. This divine order has told us the kind of economy that we are going to have in that society. This is dialectical idealism का simply एक representation. This is just a representation of the dialectical idealism. Okay. Hegel says, with my theory of dialectical idealism, we shall now descend from heaven to earth. Okay. Heaven to earth, in the sense, earth is the making of heaven. What you see in reality does not exist per se. Everything has already been decided and made in the heaven. Okay. Now, Hegel believes that society evolves through three, what would I say, three components of history. Three components of history. Three components of history. What are those three components? One is thesis. Second, antithesis. And third is synthesis. Thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Okay. Now, check that diagram which I had drawn earlier. Despotism, to democracy to monarchy. Okay. Despotism is thesis. Thesis. A set of idea, a social order that was established already. That was already there. Okay. This despotism was challenged by a new set of idea that was Greco-Roman Empire, democracy, the idea of free speech, all those things. Okay. This was antithesis. Now, what is going to be the final culmination of the conflict between these two ideas, thesis, antithesis? That is the synthesis. Now, synthesis would have the best elements of both of them. Best elements of both of them. Okay. State would be there, individual freedom would be there. And that is why we now have an arrangement where we have a proper balance between state and freedom. That is constitutional monarchy. Okay. Now, one day, Hegel told these things to his student. Okay, next day. Then student asked him, if history evolves like evolution of ideas, and there is a conflict between ideas, so I think in that case, this conflict should never stop. This conflict should go on forever. If history is all about ideas, why are you stopping the conflict now? I mean, the conflict is something that should go on and on forever. And Hegel said to the student that, remember, societies evolve through a set of ideas, but this evolution will happen until we have reached an absolute idea. Once we have reached absolute idea, there would be no more dialectics. Dialectics will stop. Okay. In the sense, history will stop. History will not progress. Why history will not progress? Because we have reached that point which is regarded as absolute idea. In the sense, मूवी जैसे आप देखते हो 3 घंटे की, कहीं ना कहीं तो खत्म होगी ना वो. ओके. तो मर गया हीरो, खत्म, अब घर जाएंगे वापस. उसी तरह similarly history has also ended, and Hegel talks about a concept, end of history. End of history. When is history going to end? Okay. And there are many political scientists also who are highly inspired by the writings of Hegel. One scholar is there, Japanese scholar Francis Fukuyama, who has written this book, End of History. He is alive, and he says, you know, what Hegel thought as end of history and what I think as end of history are both very different things. How come? Write down one more line after this. The dialectics between thesis, antithesis leading to synthesis. The dialectics between thesis, antithesis leading to synthesis will keep on happening until we reach absolute idea. Until we reach absolute idea. Okay. Now, which simply means that the synthesis again becomes a thesis. Synthesis again becomes a thesis. Imagine, after French Revolution, constitutional monarchy had come into existence, but it was not the end of history. After the establishment of constitutional monarchy, reign of terror happened. which means thesis was constitutional monarchy and antithesis was reign of terror. Okay, and how did this antithesis was again contradicted by a next synthesis? The next synthesis was when Napoleon came. Napoleon. And with the rise of Napoleon, history stops. History stops. And that is why Hegel is very happy that I am writing in an era where history stops. Okay. So he is very happy that he has Napoleon before him and I am already writing about philosophy of history. Okay. And why history stops here? The student asked him, why are you saying that history stops here? Hegel says, there can be no better alternative than the constitutional monarchy. In the sense, we have constitutional monarchy gives us not only strong state, but also gives you freedom to ask me anything. What else do you want? Can there be any better alternative form of governance? You have strong monarch to protect you, and you have freedom of speech to say whatever you want to. What a beautiful combination of both the things. So obviously, history can have no better arrangement of governance after this, and therefore history ends here. Okay. Although we know history did not stop there. Okay. Hegel had died after constitutional monarchy. Pure form of democracy got established, monarchy got over. Okay. And today, we are living in an era where Francis Fukuyama has written another book, End of History, calling liberal democracies as the end of history. In the sense, after liberal democracy, there is no concept or no alternative available. All the other alternatives have failed. You talk about communism in Russia, it failed. You talk about communism in China, people considering it as a failure. I don't know how, but still, yes, consider it as a failure. Liberal democracies, if you see America, India, Australia, Japan, Canada, or Europe, these are the ruling countries, liberal democracies. Okay. And there is no better arrangement, alternative available after this. You talk about crisis, economic crisis happens everywhere. See, in 2008, subprime crisis happened, but again, people thought that now socialism is going to come. New era is going to come after capitalism, but that did not happen. Capitalism again maintained itself in the guise of liberal democracy. Okay. So, India also witnessed many such economic crises, but we never turned into a purely communist socialist state. Okay. We always retained the idea of liberal democracy without going into stateless society or without going forward thinking of any alternative beyond state. Okay, liberal democracy is one project that has been considered as the end of history. What is liberal democracy? What is liberal democracy? Just think of a monarch being replaced by someone who you have chosen to rule over you. Okay. You have chosen the person to rule over you, and you can criticize also that person. What could be the best possible arrangement after this? Nobody can think like that right now. I mean, to think beyond representative governance with the idea of freedom of speech, this is the best possible case that we have today. And so, whosoever does not have this would obviously be considered as backward. Obviously. Just to give you one example of China, it is always seen as backward by the Europeans not in form of economy, although that era is also over. Okay, when they used to consider China as backward, although They are now seeking support of China also in many policies. Okay, but somehow the Asian civilizations were seen as inferior, and it was only because of Hegelian philosophy of history that was used to justify the backwardness of the Asians, because we did not have freedom of speech, the concept of freedom of speech, okay, until Britishers came. Okay, so this was the main idea, what I was trying to tell you. So, thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis. With Napoleon comes synthesis. Okay, absolute idea is the stage where history ends. There would be no more evolution. Okay, now comes Karl Marx. Karl Marx says, after feeling disgusted, okay, with the writings of Hegel, he says, philosophers have so far interpreted the world. Philosophers have so far interpreted the world, only interpretations, how world has evolved, manifestation of geist, world historical figures evolved, it was the sanction of divine, all these nonsensical things. Philosophers have so far interpreted the world, the point is to change it. This is what Karl Marx says. Okay, philosophers have so far interpreted the world. So far interpreted the world. The point is to change it. Change what? Change the world. Do not interpret the world. Change the world. Now, these words actually culminated into what we call as today Marxism. Okay. When you talk about changing the world, you are not considering individual as part of the organic or the divine whole who would simply be, doing his act as per the divine will. Okay, he would come to the rescue of people, would go away, and history would evolve automatically. No, when you are saying that point is to change it, then means that instead of being befooled by such people who consider you as an agent of God, try to think beyond these things, look for the problems around you all by yourself, and then change, and then find the real cause of these problems that you see around you, and then change the society. Okay, so no more talking about God. Talk about real world. Talk about poverty. Talk about unemployment. Talk about job crisis. Talk about class inequality. These are the real world problems. What you are talking about, Hegel, is nonsense and is not relevant to us. This is what Karl Marx is saying. That whatever you have said, first of all, I could not understand it. Okay. Secondly, still I want to abuse you. Because these things do not make sense to me. So, what has Karl Marx really done? Karl Marx was very happy with Ludwig Feuerbach. Okay, very happy. So what Karl Marx did from Hegel, in fact, although he criticized Hegel, but he was also, you know, supporter of the method Hegel used. The method was dialectics. He liked this method, although he did not like the idea of idealism, but he liked the idea of dialectics. Remember this, Karl Marx. So Karl Marx borrowed dialectics, which was the method used by Hegel to explain the evolution of history. He borrowed this method from Hegel and from Feuerbach. From Feuerbach, he borrowed materialism. What was materialism? Materialism was one philosophy which is telling us God is creation of the man, simply. Physical being has created God. God in itself does not exist in isolation. Okay. Man has created God. God has not created man. Okay. And what is idealism? Idealism says God has created the world, evolution of ideas, all those things. Okay. Marx fused both of these ideas, and this is how dialectical materialism was coined as a theory by Karl Marx. Okay. Everything clear till here? Take. See, think it like this. There was a point of time when women had no rights. Okay. And it was very normal in the sense, in that time, we did not even have feminist to say that this is not right. So, women not having any rights was normal at one point of time until feminism came. Okay. Which means it was a social order where women had assimilated into the patriarchal fold of society completely. Okay. And this was thesis. This is thesis. One state, I'm telling you. Okay, one condition. This thesis was contradicted by Mary Wollstonecraft's writing. When she started writing for women's right, okay, vindication of the rights of women, this was nothing but challenge to this social order, so-called thesis. So Mary Wollstonecraft ideas are nothing but antithesis to the thesis. And what was the synthesis? Synthesis was the National Assembly's Declaration of Rights, where women were also given rights. That was synthesis. Okay. Now this synthesis may again become thesis. And today when we talk about fifth wave of feminism, every wave has contributed one or the other thing. Okay, you would realize how different kind of property rights, marital disputes are being resolved, and how they are being resolved with the help of, or how different ideas are coming from the literature of those scholars who have talked about these problems that are being faced by women, not just in Asia but also in other countries. Okay. Today, marital rape is not considered rape in India. Tomorrow it will be. So, ideas will evolve. Ideas will evolve. Okay. This is what the Hegelian thesis is all about. And when Hegel gives so much importance to ideas, remember, individuals are absent in his philosophy of history. It is all about the spirit. Okay. The ideas are reflected through us. Ideas are supreme. We are simply agents of those ideas. Okay. Now, what is dialectical materialism? Before this, let me take some 2-3 minutes break. This is the time. Sir, will you explain 5 waves of feminism? वो तो बहुत आगे. Yeah, today is all about heavy philosophy. Yes, yes. But no longer you would have this heavy philosophy now onwards, but we are going to talk about the real world. Karl Marx, no more Hegel. Okay. Chalo, see you after 3 minutes. Okay. Let us continue. Audible? Now is the turn for the real thing that we are going to study. Marx, dialectical materialism. What did Marx do? Marx, remember this, turned Hegel upside down. He turned Hegel upside down. What does it mean? If you remember Hegel, Hegel is like this. Ideas giving birth to material. Okay. What does material include? Economy. What are the ideas which have given birth to this economy, the material conditions that we see around us? Okay, the material, what do we understand by material condition? Material means this glass. Glass is material, simply, okay. But this glass was actually, how did we come to discover or invent this glass? Okay, someone would say it was discovered by silicon. We mixed silicon with this element and then glass came into being. But how come we invented silicon out of nowhere? Okay, and then we decided to make this glass. It was all told to us by God that this is something that you have to do if you have to evolve as a humanity. So that is why we did. Okay, so material came as a result of ideas. Okay, how did Kekule discover benzene structure? Idea. रात को he was falling, he was sleepy. Okay, he saw in his dream the structure of benzene. The next day he wakes up and makes the C6H6 material, benzene. The origin of this benzene is in the idea that he saw in the dream. Okay. What is the origin of the mathematical equations of Ramanujam? The dream that he used to see. Devi used to descend in his dream. So, material conditions that we see around us do not, although at surface it seems that they are developed by us, but actually it was the result of the divine. It was the call of world spirit, okay, which made us do those things. Why did Gandhi come to India? Was it predestined? Hegel would say yes, it was predestined. If Gandhi was not there, we would not have attained freedom. So we see Gandhi as material, as physical being, but it was sent to us by God. And in fact, people called him Mahatma. Mahatma. He was sent to the India by God only. If he had not been there, how would we have attained freedom? So, ideas are supreme. Materials are simply manifestation of ideas. Material is simply manifestation of ideas. And what do we understand by material? We basically understand by material economic conditions of society. Okay. So if poverty is there, again, do you remember? Poverty, if someone is poor, maybe it is my bad karma in the past which has made me poor. So poverty, a poor man looks poor materially, physically, looks poor, but his materiality is the result of ideas that he has in his mind, that he believes in. And that is why he is suffering his poverty, because he believes that unless I suffer poverty, I would not be born as a rich man in the next world. Okay. So ideas justify material conditions. This is what Hegel is. Okay, and ideas lead to the rise of material conditions. Now, what kind of ideas? What are those ideas which have gone into the making of economy that we have before us? Ideas can include anything. Ideas can range from law, family. These are simply ideas only. Religion, state, all these are ideas which have led to the rise of economy. Okay, what kind of law would be there was also given to us by the divine. Okay, this is what Hegel is. Now comes Marx. Marx turned Hegel upside down. Okay, upside down. Which means instead of ideas at the base, what do we have? We have material. And what do we have in ideas? All these things which were at the base, according to Marx, are at the superstructure of the base. And the base, real base is material, economy. Everything else is in superstructure, law, family, religion, state. This is what Marx has done to Hegel. Okay. Now, before going into the details of what this diagram represents, I would like to briefly discuss with you law of dialectics. Write down here, to understand dialectical materialism, we would have to understand law of dialectics. Law of dialectics. Now, what is the law of dialectics? Remember, this law of dialectics was developed by, per se, law of dialectics. You know that Hegel has given us the idea of dialectics. You know Hegel has given us the idea of idealism. But who has given laws of dialectics? He is a person who was a very crude supporter of Karl Marx, a very close friend of Karl Marx, who has also done reading on Hegel extensively, just like Marx. This person was Engels, developed by Engels. Engels. Now, Engels is that person who supported Karl Marx throughout his life. When Karl Marx was writing every time against the state, when he was in the University of Berlin, okay, he was writing against monarchy, writing against the laws, writing against religion, okay, everything that he could see before him, because he believed that religion, law, state, all these things are not taking care of the real concerns that humanity has right now, that is poverty, unemployment, inequality. Nobody's talking about the real problem. Everybody's talking about the real order that one should have, the kind of monarch that we should have. Okay, these nonsense things all of us are talking about. So he was, being a very prolific writer, he used to scribble a lot on, you know, something that sounds very anti-state. So that is why he was sent to exile. by Germany. Okay, he was not allowed to stay in Germany. And after Germany, he went to France because Engels, okay, he met actually Engels in France. And in France, Engels told him that, the way you write about state, law, divine, all those things, I really like those things. The articles that you have written, I really like them. Okay. And, but Karl Marx told him, but nobody likes my articles. Engels tell, no, that is okay. I really like it. Okay. And Karl Marx says, but when I write, people say, this man should not be living here. So Engels said, don't worry about living and all those things. I will take care of all the expenses that you have. Okay, कितना तुम्हारा खर्चा होता है महीने का? 1000, 2000, 3000. I give you all the money that you have, that you want. Okay. You just keep writing. I just like your writing. Your writing should not stop. Okay. Karl Marx said, okay. One day, Karl Marx was in France. He was writing against monarchy again. Okay. The French monarchy. Okay. The France government was told by the German monarch, the Prussian emperor, that this man will write the same thing against you people also. Okay. इसको जल्दी बाहर फेंको. This man should not be living in France also. So the French government, they said okay. So they sent again Karl Marx to exile. Now the fact is, Karl Marx now was no longer living either in Germany nor in France. Now he went to Britain. Okay. In Britain, Engels told him, Engels belonged to a very affluent family. His father was industrialist and he also had this cotton textile industries. Okay. So that way he was very rich. So he told Karl Marx that, see, whenever it comes to money and all those things, you do not have to worry about, but just keep writing. I like whatever you write. Okay. So now Karl Marx, by the time he had reached Britain, he had no money left. He had his wife, his 7 children. Okay. And all these people were living in labor camps because after getting disposed of from Germany and France, now he had no home. He was homeless. So he was trying to find a place where expenses would not be so high. A place like Patel Nagar in Delhi, or not Patel Nagar, Shadipur, something like that. Okay. So he went to labor camps in Britain. Now, in labor camps, what happened? After a few years, he lost 3 children. 3 of his children died of malnutrition, living in labor camps. Okay. And after the death of 3 children, the wife of Karl Marx, who belonged to a very aristocratic family, she also died. Okay. Now Karl Marx was left with 2 children, 3 children more. Okay. After a few years, those 2 children also died. And the sufferings that he had seen, not only in his personal life, the loss of the wife and loss of the children, and whatever German government and French government did to him, okay, not letting him write, not letting him earn the money through which he could sustain his life. After all these suffering and after seeing the real poverty, and after writing in labor camps, he was someone who had experienced poverty all by himself. After all these sufferings, he also lost his life. And this is why when you read Karl Marx, you always read hate speech. It is hate speech against the state. You would not be reading Marx like the way you read Durkheim. Durkheim was all very happy about state, and he felt state is the embodiment of morality. Okay. To Karl Marx, state is not the embodiment of morality, it is the embodiment of curse. It is the embodiment of sufferings. Okay. Because he had seen poverty. Now, the fact is, Engels, after the death of Karl Marx, Engels never stopped writing. Okay. Engels completed most of the projects which were uncompleted, which were not completed by Marx. Okay. And Engels developed this law of dialectics. Now, what is the law of dialectics? There are three laws of dialectics. Okay. One is transformation from quantity to quality. Second is law of union and conflict of opposites. Third is law of negation of negation. Okay. Transformation from quantity to quality, law of union and conflict of opposites, law of negation of negation. Okay. Now, Engels have developed this law, but remember, dialectics was given by Hegel. इसमें confuse मत होना. Dialectics given by Hegel, but law of dialectics given by Engels. Okay. What does this law explain to us? This law explains the evolution of history. Remember, Hegel was talking about evolution of history. Evolution of history is nothing but evolution of ideas. Ideas get in conflict or in contradiction with each other, and then comes the real idea. Eventually, absolute idea will be reached where there would be no more thesis, antithesis, or collision. Okay, this is what Hegel is all about. Now, Engels is telling us how this law works really. Okay, Engels says, first what we have is transformation from quantity to quality. Imagine, suppose your age is 23. Okay, after 10 years, 33. Okay, that means quantitative change from 23 to 33, then 43, then 53, 63, 73. All these are quantitative changes. And after 83, death. This is qualitative change. This is qualitative change. So, imagine one more example. You have a bowl of water. Okay. You put that bowl of water on that kitchen stove. Okay. Now, you increase the temperature. What will happen? The temperature of water will start increasing. Okay. From 25 degrees Celsius, that is room temperature, the temperature of water will now become 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 35, 40. Okay, temperature of water will increase. This is quantitative change that is happening. Okay, when you are boiling the water, but after some point of time, water will be no more in the bowl. It will all be evaporated. This is qualitative change. Okay, the state of matter has changed from liquid to gas. Okay, so that simply means that initially you have quantitative changes. Okay, in the natural world, we have quantitative changes and then we attain qualitative change. Like for example, first attempt nahi hua, second attempt nahi hua, third attempt nahi hua, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th attempt हो गया. Okay. Now, till 10 attempts, it was quantitative changes that you experience throughout your life. After 10th attempt, you become IS, qualitative change. Think it like this. Okay. Now, in societies, the same thing happens. What happens is, like for example, if I talk about India's independence, okay, from 1857 till 1947, we had nothing but number of movements increasing every day. Okay, sometimes peasant movement, caste movement, okay, women's movement, number of movements increased. The objective of movements also were very quite different. But at the end of the day, what happened? We got liberation, we got independence. Now India was free India, sovereign India. This was qualitative change. Okay, initially we did not have mass-based movement. If you remember, most of the movements in history have failed because they were not mass-based movement. All of them were regarded as class-based movements only. Okay, in the sense, for example, if you talk about any movement like civil disobedience movement, why it failed? Because it did not incorporate or it did not politicize the masses. This is what Bipin Chandra tells us. Politicization of masses could not happen. In the sense, very few elite people had participated in the movement. Dalits were absent, tribals were absent, women were absent, larger masses were absent. Okay. And that is why we could not mobilize the people against the oppression of the British Empire. And that is why they failed. But gradually, by the end of Quit India movement, we had mass movement. Okay, in Quit India, why Quit India movement is regarded as one of the finest movement, okay, or one of the historic movement before we attained independence, because it was really a massive movement. Okay, even Gandhi had declared कि अब violence भी चलेगा, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. Okay, so till Quit India movement, it was quantitative changes that were happening. But after independence, we witnessed qualitative change. Okay, now imagine like this. Imagine like this. Now, Karl Marx is speaking. Okay, Karl Marx is saying, I am exploiting you. Okay, I am rich person, you are poor. I am exploiting you. I told you to cook Maggie for me. You cooked it. Okay. After some point of time, I asked you to cook one more Maggie for me. You cooked it. After 5 minutes, again I asked you one more. One more, one more, one more, one more. After every 5 minutes, I'm doing this. One day, what will happen? This cook, okay, he will give a tight slap on my face. बस बहुत हुआ और मैगी नहीं बनाऊंगा मैं. रोज का ये हर 5 मिनट में एक बारी में क्यों नहीं बनवा लेते तुम अपनी? This is qualitative change. The slap that that person got. Okay. Because this person, the cook, he was feeling highly exploited. In one day, he would ask me to make 100 Maggies. And what is the amount that he's giving me per day? 20 rupees. Okay. सब मेरे से बनवा रहा है और दे कुछ नहीं रहा है मुझे. मारो इसको. So it was qualitative change. And Karl Marx says that history has evolved not as the result of dialectics between ideas. Rather, history has evolved as a result of dialectics between classes. Dialectics between classes. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you something here. Okay. Class है? Okay. You know, you remember that student who asked Hegel, what is history? And Hegel told him, history is nothing but the evolution of ideas. Okay. These ideas come in conflict with each other, and that's how history progresses. Karl Marx says history of all societies hitherto until now has been the history of class struggle. It is not the struggle between ideas, it is the struggle between real people, the real classes. So, the version of history according to Karl Marx is very different. Karl Marx says to Hegel that you are talking about conflict between ideas, okay, and how the culmination of this conflict resulting into a new set of idea, and this idea then becomes thesis, and then one more idea comes, challenges this idea, and then one more synthesis established, and this is the absolute idea. No more thesis, antithesis. This is the final stage, end of history. Karl Marx says these things do not make sense to me. Why? Because who are creating these ideas? Where are these ideas coming from? You are not touching upon the real issue, Mr. Hegel. Okay, these ideas are not coming from God. This is not the will of God that you see execution of millions of people in World War. Is this the will of God? If God is so almighty, omnipotent, omniscient, why did we see the reign of terror? Okay, Hegel had answers to all these questions, but again, the answer would he would trace back all the answers to God only. Okay, Karl Marx says when you start attributing the cause of your suffering, everything to God, 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 how would you make any change in your life? Simple सा lesson दे रहा है वो हमें. See, suppose you give your best shot in UPSC, you do not clear it, and if you say, यार भगवान की यही मर्जी थी, अरे भगवान की यही मर्जी थी, ठीक, तुम हेगेलियन हो क्या? When you speak anything like this, yeah, it's all destined, yeah. Who see, I know that person, he never used to study, still he could clear it. I was studying every day, full, 24/7 I was studying, still I could not make it. Maybe this is what God wants. Okay, so when you are speaking like this is something that Karl Marx would never accept. Okay, and Karl Marx would say, when you attribute every cause of your suffering to God, you are actually not letting the real action come in. Okay, the power that you have to change your life, you're not doing it. Only because you think my life can be changed only by the will of God. Are you can do everything that you can all by yourself. But since you are living in this illusion, so you will never make any change in your life. And since the whole Germanic European society was living in this illusion, the whole French society was living in this illusion for so long, that it is the will of God, okay, which has transcended us to this level, and again a heroic figure has come in the form of God, and he will now take us forward. So in that case, whosoever is poor, whosoever is unemployed, whosoever is feeling suffering, they would simply talk in a similar fashion. They would not be able to protest against the state because they feel no, state is the manifestation of God. How can we challenge the state? How can we challenge the ruler? He is God. He is sent to us by God. So Karl Marx is saying that the point is not to interpret the world but to change it. This is the central theme of Karl Marx, and he says to Engels that history therefore has not evolved as a result of dialectics between so-called ideas. Rather, history has evolved as a result of dialectics between classes. What is the meaning of classes here and dialectics between classes? Karl Marx says, you talk about any society in the history. What has happened? Initially, in the so-called despotic regimes that Hegel talks about, what did we have? We have master slaves. Few people were masters. Maximum were slaves to the masters. This is the real condition. No God, nothing else. The real factor was that people were masters and some other people were slaves. Okay. And then after this, feudalism came. So-called idea, which automatically came. It is not that it is coming automatically. If you have read slave revolts ever in the history of world history, like Haitian Revolution, you might have come across many slave rebellions. Okay, how slaves revolt against master, that is a real condition that is happening. It is not happening all by itself that after master slave, you read next chapter that the next chapter is feudalism. अरे feudalism आया कहाँ से? वो भी तो पढ़ते हो. You do not see that all these were happening because of God and manifestation of spirit, all those things. Some godly figure came and then helped the peasants, or this is not how we read. This is not how it actually happens. Karl Marx says, when feudalism comes, then again some real oppressors get developed. Well, who are these oppressors? Feudal lords, landlords, who we call as landlords. Instead of masters, now we have landlords. Instead of slaves, now we have peasants or serfs. Okay. And after feudalism comes or came capitalism, that was industrial revolution. And now Marx was writing on industrial revolution. He says, whatsoever has happened to ancient society of master-slave and whatsoever happened to feudalism will again happen to this capitalism. So therefore, capitalism is not the end of history. History is now going to get unfolded like anything. And just like any other past society, capitalism will also be destroyed. Why? Because capitalism also has one class called as bourgeoisie. Now, who are the bourgeoisie? Bourgeoisie are the owner of the industries. Okay. And they are exploiting, just like masters used to exploit slaves, landlords used to exploit serfs, bourgeoisie are exploiting proletariats, the working class. Okay. And one fine day, this capitalism will also get over. And just like any other society in the past, capitalism also sow the seeds of its own destruction. Okay. And therefore, capitalism cannot be the end of history. The end of history is communism. बहुत आगे जाके आएगा, मैं आपको बताऊंगा. Anyway, so basically, Marx is saying that only because of the revolt by the slaves against masters, history progressed. Only because of the revolt by the peasants against the landlords, history progressed. And only because of the revolt by the working class against the capitalist class shall the history progress. So history is therefore not result of dialectics between ideas. Rather, history is nothing but result of dialectics between classes. Okay. Clear? यहाँ तक? तो अच्छा वो 4:38 भी हो गया है. ठीक है, तो I'll continue from here on the next class. If any doubt you have, you can ask me. I did not even realize that it is 4:38. तभी वो बीच बीच में आ रहे थे मेरे से देखने मेरे को. मैं वही सोच रहा हूँ क्यों बार बार देख रहे हो. The difference between despotism and absolute monarchy. Despotism, consider it like this. Asian despotism, when Hegel talks about Asian despotism, only few people are having freedom. That is the rulers. No one else is having the freedom. Just consider it like a model. Hegel did not really go into the Asiatic despotic societies. He could not, because that society was over. Because he believed, if you look into all the societal evolution that we have had so far, it is nothing but the ideas of freedom. The more freedom we are getting, basically, this is how he traces the histories. Okay, the evolution of history is like aiming towards liberation of men. In that Asiatic despotic society, maximum people were not having freedom, only few people were having. And then came aristocracy. Aristocracy means rule of elites, the rich people. These rich people are having all freedom, rest are not. Okay, that means now more men got freedom, but still freedom has not really, what do you say, percolated down to the masses. And then comes constitutional monarchy finally, where masses would now get maximum freedom, liberty, equality. Okay, absolute monarchy is what? What is absolute monarchy? Consider it like this. Asiatic despotic society is the one where we have masters and slaves. This is how the relation of the people have between them with each other. Okay, master slaves, master slaves. Very few masters, maximum number of slaves. High degree of oppression, very low freedom. Maximum freedom enjoyed by masters only. Okay, but in absolute monarchy, in that case, we have feudalism. When we were talking about absolute monarchy before French Revolution, what did we have? We have feudalism, we had feudalism. And feudalism is not about master slaves. It is more about landlords and serfs. And comparatively, these people had more freedom. Okay, this is how Hegel traces the evolution of society. Pranshu. The difference between despotism and absolute monarchy तो हो गया. Pranshu sir, notes मिले नहीं क्या तुम लोगों को? डरखाइम के नोट्स तो दे दिए मैंने. इसका आज का कह रहे हो क्या नोट्स? आज के नोट्स अभी बने कहाँ हैं? Notes are not made. Pratibha Chandan. Is evolution of history necessarily leading to increase in rationality and freedom? Yes. यही तो बोल रहा है हेगल. Okay. Hegel is saying history of society is all about evolution of freedom, rationality, more and more increasing amount of freedom. Okay. And this is why when you see the rise of societies from Asiatic despotism, aristocracy, Greco-Roman Empire, absolute monarchy, and then finally constitutional monarchy, this is nothing but more and more freedom that is being given to us by the world spirit. Okay. Karunesh Maurya. After enlightenment, even people used to believe in godly ideas. How law family helps in creating materialism? How law and family helps in creating materialism? Now, this question is in the context of Karl Marx or Hegel? Yes, Karl Marx or Hegel. See, let me tell you one very basic example. Okay. You know, someone, just to give you one example of family. Someone one day asked me, sir, why can't we have a society free of poverty? Okay. Why can't we have society where everyone is equal? I told him it is because of your father. Now he got shocked. ऐसे कैसे भाई मेरे father का role कहाँ से आ गया इसके अंदर जबरदस्ती? The fact is, your family would never let have equality. Why? Tomorrow you will get property of your father. Would you not? Yes, you would. Now, when you would get property of your father or your mother, would you be distributing that property with all the people or would you keep it to yourself? You would keep it to yourself. You would never distribute it to anyone. And Karl Marx believes that private property is the main source of exploitation. I will tell you about these things also. And family is one realm of idea. Family is an idea only. Family is not material condition. Of course, I hope you know this. See, glass is material. Is family as material as this glass? No, family is sentiment, idea. Okay, family is not material. Family as an idea works to secure and to pass on the private property. And private property, once secured by family, is acting to serve the interest of the larger society, which runs on these ideas only. Something which I don't want to explain right now because it will be chaotic for you to understand these things. But just understand one thing. Family is supporting, family as an institution, as an idea, is very much supportive of capitalism. Why? Okay, do not worry, I'll teach you also these things because I have not yet taught you these things. But still, family as an idea is supportive of capitalism. Why? Because family talks about preserving the private property, and capitalism is all about private property. And therefore, both of them are allies to each other. And family, therefore, as a system of idea, is not doing nothing but justifying the values of capitalism. And the values of capitalism is all about profit and private property, nothing else. Shivam Garg, how creator feels alienated after creating the god. Array, when you have given all your power, and you think that the other person has all the powers. Okay, when you have given all your power to someone who you have created, how would you not feel alienated? Imagine like this. I construct God and then I say, God, you are all powerful, you can do anything, ye, wo, sab. When I would speak like this, it simply means that what could be done by me alone, now I believe would be done by God. So that's how I have become alienated from my own self. Alienated from my potential, alienated from everything that I could do all by my own. But now that I've made this God, I have come to believe that God exists, religion exists. So the creator has become alienated from his own creation now, because the creation or the created thing has been elevated to such a level that you feel that it has assumed a reality of its own type. And just like Durkheim, very much you would feel many parallels in the writings of Feuerbach and Durkheim. Durkheim is also talking about how religion is external to and coercive of the actor. And Feuerbach is also echoing the sentiments, similar sentiments. God is your creation, still it possesses control over you because you have given all the control. You believe that he is all supreme. Okay, that is why you are alienated. Rajshri, sir, is Hegel in the modern era speaking the language of Middle Ages? No, see. What is modern era to you? In those times, that was modern. 1800 was modern to those people. Modern era. Okay. So when we say modern in middle, I mean, to you, middle would be 18 maybe. But to them, 18 was modern. So the question, I mean, this is the problem, that this question is difficult. Saurav Sinha, how man is alienated from its own creation? बता दिया सौरभ मैंने. Karunesh Hegel, Saurav Sinha, audio not coming. Nutan Chaurasi, why Sigmund has that weird kind of idea or religion or God? Why that idea is still relevant in sociology to read? Weird kind of idea? No, don't call it weird kind of idea. Just read it like किसी बड़े आदमी ने बोल दिया है बस, तो पढ़ लो. Weird हम बोलेंगे नहीं उसको. Sir, for Marx and Hegel, materialism means economy, but for Feuerbach, materialism means no existence of God, only man. नहीं Rashid, not like this. Materialism simply means physical existence. Physical existence matters. Matter is something that matters. Ideas do not. Okay, when Feuerbach says Ideas are created by the matter, in the sense by physical being. This is what materialism is. In the sense, he's trying to tell us that it is the matter through which ideas came. Man have made this God, elevated God to such a level that man himself has become alienated from his own creation. Okay, this is what. Shivam Garg, thank you, sir. Harshvardhan, sir, you said history will end when communism will be there. But what if communism has its own problem? तब की तब देख लेंगे, अभी क्यों टेंशन लेनी, आने तो दो उसको. ठीक है, हिस्ट्री तो नेवर एंडिंग प्रोसेस है. ओके, चलो, ओके, सी यू टुमारो.